welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name's Harrison and this is episode... I have no idea. One sec. I think it's episode 19? Yes, episode 19. I'm kind of filming this a little bit randomly this week because, so I don't have any notes because I kind of remembered about 10 minutes ago that this is actually the only real time I have to film. Normally I film on a Friday, today's Wednesday, but I've got things going on the next couple of days that mean I can't film then. Not really on Friday, it's just that my boyfriend's home from work and I find it awkward to film when someone's in the house. And then normally I'd film on a Friday and then post on a Sunday, so I'm still going to post on the Sunday as you're watching this, but it's a couple of days earlier, which means there's a couple of days left less crafting, but I actually feel like I've got a lot done since I last filmed, so I feel like that's not really going to be noticeable. But like I said, no notes, so we'll see how it goes. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. If you're a new viewer, my name's Harrison and I live in the south of England, and this is my kind of standard format knitting and crochet podcast where I talk about knitting and crochet and yarn and the things I've been up to. We had a few new subscribers from the last video, so if you are one of those, thank you. If you're not subscribed yet and you'd like to, it's always open. We don't close subscribing at any point, so that would be wonderful. But shall we crack on? I have, like I said, I've done a fair bit of crafting. I have 2 new finished objects. I mean, they're new finished objects, but you've seen them as works in progress if you've watched before. And then I have 3 whips that I'm going to talk about. 2 of those are new cast-ons to kind of replace the finished objects. And then I have some yarn that's arrived. And I'm also, because this is the first video after the end of the month. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm going to talk about my so far in and out yarn and how that's been going. Spoiler alert, not very well. I just did the maths just now before I filmed. Yeah, it's not gone that well, but I have explanations. It would be a lot better if there wasn't a large yarn purchase, which was not my idea. I was pressured into it by a nephew who is very, very cute, and unfortunately I'm unable to say no to requests from said nephew. But I'll talk about that after I've talked about the knitting and the crochet. Just knitting today actually. I've done a little bit of crochet progress on my blanket, but not enough that you could see, so I'm not going to show that. I think what I'm going to do is show you once I've kind of finished each section, because then there'll be more to look at. So maybe by the next time, maybe the time after that, maybe the time after that. Who knows? I'm not psychic. Although, no, let's not get to that. So, finished objects. My first finished object is my traveller cowl. So this is a pattern by Andrea Lowry. It's a textured cowl made up just of knits and pearls, and you knit it flat and then you seam it down the back to put together. It's one of her kind of standard bandana style cowls. And I have knit this out of DK yarn from the Crafty Bird in their colourway The Family Madrigal, which is inspired by the film Encanto. And this is all done. When I last showed you this, I think I just finished section 1, 2. I think I just finished section 2. And it's only a 3-section pattern. So it's all done. Let me put it on. It's wound up so this pattern, if you've not seen it before, is kind of a gaugeless pattern because it was intended to be used with hand spun yarn, which is obviously not as consistent a gauge as commercial yarns or hand dyed yarn that's come from a single manufacturer. So that makes it somewhat where you have to kind of work out your own measurements. Luckily I've made 2 shift cowls before, which are the same construction, so I followed those measurements. Because it's DK, I think it's blocked out a little bit larger than those. Those kind of come a little bit closer, like they'd be snugger on my face right now. but I'm happy with the size of it, I'm happy with the shape of it, and I really love the colour. I think this yarn by the Crafty Bird is so nice, so kind of filled with colour. I knit this on 4mm interchangeable Leica needles, and what else do I have to say about that? I really enjoyed knitting this. I really enjoy these patterns by Andrea Lowry. I think if she's got any others, I might look at making another one of these shapes, because I think they're really successful. I like how the texture shows up, and while this is a really variegated yarn, you can still see the texture nicely with those reverse stockinette bumps that kind of happen throughout it. And I'm happy with the seaming. It's a little bit different in construction from the Shift Cowl in the way, and I think it's potentially because this was done first. I think I've made that up, I don't know if that's true, but there's a few bits in this where you can almost tell that they were maybe refined for the Shift Cowl. One of those is the seaming at the back. So on this one, you continue the I-cord down your final side and then seam it into the I-cord. I don't hate the way this looks, but on the Shift Cowl you do more of a selvage edge and then seam together, and I think I prefer how that looks. So if I were to make another one of these, I think I would just do that and just ignore the I-cord bit of that final section. Other than that, I'm really, really happy with it. I used about 140-ish grams. I had 3 skeins of this. I knew it wouldn't use all 3 skeins. And so I've got about, I think it maybe used more than that. I think it maybe used about 160 grams. Let me just check, because I hate to be a liar. Yeah, it used about 167 grams. So I've got about 30-ish grams here, and then I've got another full skein. My plan is to use what's remaining to make some DK fingerless mitts. And then I'm hoping I would then also have enough for a hat. But we'll see. But I was going to make the hat first, but I thought I don't need another hat. And I think I prefer having matching mitts and the cowl rather than hat cowl, which are right next to each other. So if I can only make one, I'd rather it be the mitts. I'm happy that I've got plenty of yarn for that. I've not cast those on yet, so I might cast those on by the time I next speak to you. But I think I need to buy the needles, because I think I'm going to try them on 9-inch circulars, and I don't think I have the right size to do that in a DK. But I'll find the pattern first and then go on from there. So I might have cast them on by the time I next see you. But that is the Traveller Cowl by Andrea Lowry. Very happy with that. The second thing that I have finished was my hat, and this is still a little bit damp from blocking. This is the Cushy Comfort Hat by Stephen West, and this was my first ever cable project. So one of the things I said at the end of last year was that I wanted to learn a few skills, and cable knitting was one of those. And here are my first cables. I think, yeah, you can see them, they're showing up. I'm really, really happy with this. I'm really, really proud of this. One, for kind of actually going and learning a new skill within knitting, like I said I was going to, and it's only February, so we're on to a winner. I don't have my watch on, which is going to throw me off because I like being able to see the time. 1 second, let me just put my watch back on. There we go. But also because I think I've done a pretty decent job of the cables. When you last saw me, so that was just under 2 weeks ago, at that point I had finished the ribbing. I then did all the cables in a week, and it wasn't really the main thing I focused on either, because I focused on getting this finished first. So they didn't take that long at all, and they were quite fun to do. When I first saw the pattern written out with the cable section, none of those rows are just kind of knit to end of row kind of things. So I thought it was going to be really complicated. I thought I was going to have to like be constantly checking the pattern, but you don't, because the way, and I don't know if this is true of all cables, it probably isn't, but the way this pattern's written, once you've done literally one cable round, if you pay attention to what it's asking you to do with each stitch in round 2, you then really don't need to pay attention other than the cable rounds. And it's a 4-row cable repeat that you do. No, it's an 8-row repeat with like 2 4-rows in it, is the way you do it. And I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy how it turned out. I love this yarn this is yarn, DK yarn from Pigment and Ply, in the colourway Nordmanania. I think it's really perfect. It doesn't fit me, which is fine, because I've given it to my boyfriend, who it does fit. He has a much smaller skull than me, and he's a ginger, and greens like this really, really suit him. So he will hopefully enjoy it. I mean, he's already seen it, he's already tried it on before blocking. I don't normally block hats, but because of the cables, I wanted to see how they grow, and they've really kind of, the stitches have kind of laid out nicely. And I'm really happy with it. I just really enjoy looking at it. I'm also quite happy with the decreases up top. I think they're relatively neat. I've got a bit more confident with doing the decreases on DPNs. I don't feel like I need a third hand anymore. I don't enjoy it enough where I'd want to knit the whole hat on DPNs, but it wasn't too bad. Like I said, it's still a little bit damp, so I'm kind of letting it dry inside out at the moment, just because it felt like the inside was wetter. So I will lay that out flat so it can continue to dry. Probably needs another day or so. It's been relatively cold, so that's why it's not dried. I knit that on Chalgoo 16-inch circulars. So I did 3.5mm needles for the ribbing and 3.75mm for the cables. But then I did the decreases on 3.5mm because I didn't have 3.75mm DPNs. And I think that works out because I think I'm naturally looser on a DPN. So I think I might do that intentionally going forward. I think where it doesn't fit me, I would kind of like one for myself in maybe another colour. So I am considering, if I were to do it again, I would maybe just size up my needles. So I'd maybe do the ribbing on a 375 and the rest on a 4, and I think that would even out, because it's not like it will never fit me. It's not like it's a child size, and I could probably stretch it over my head. It's just, it doesn't, the cable bits don't have that much stretch, I think is the main thing. But I don't think I have anything else to say about that. I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy that I've done, and I really enjoyed the cabling. So I think I will definitely be looking for another pattern that utilises cables. I think I would kind of recommend it for a beginner cabler, because I think, like I said, if you can see where the stitches are going, it's really, really easy to follow. The one thing that I think was a little bit difficult was the tension. Where it's 16-inch circular, you didn't have a lot of room to move the stitches if you needed to kind of get, especially one of the cables in there is an 8-stitch cable, and sometimes knitting into a second set of 4 was a bit tight, whereas I think if it was flat, you'd be able to move the stitches a bit more freely. So that's the only thing that I'd potentially say that makes it a little bit more tricky. Although saying that, I've never done a cable project before, so I don't know. That might be true with all of them. It might be really simple and actually more complicated. I imagine it'll be slightly more complicated flat because you're having to pay attention to what you do on the back row. But I don't know what I'm saying really, because I don't have enough experience. I'm like talking boldly about a technique that I've only done one of, which is very me actually. But that's everything for the Cushy Comfort Hat by Stephen West. Really happy with that. This is how much yarn I've got left. At one point I thought I was going to run out, but it ended up being, I think I've got about 20 grams left. So I'm happy with that. I don't know what I'll do with this because it's kind of not enough for anything on its own. So I'll probably put it to one side, and then at one point I'll probably end up making some kind of scrappy DK project, because I'm starting to use DK a little bit more, so I'll end up with more kind of bits left over. But that's everything on my finished objects. Shall we move on to whips? I have 3 whips, like I said. Let me show you the one that I've seen before. I've seen all of them that you've seen before. This is the Simon Shawl by Twinset Purl. And I am knitting this out of John Arbon Knit by Numbers in their 4-ply. And the camera needs to kind of blow out to be able to see the colours because they're quite dark. There we go. You can kind of... It's actually... I'm knitting this at quite a loose gauge, I think. I don't know whether the original was as loose a gauge. Because it is quite holey. But I like the fabric, so I'm not overly fussed. I think you can... Can you see that at all? Maybe. I've just finished, and by just I mean last night, I finished section 2 of this. When I spoke to you last time, so I don't have the yardage called for in this pattern. The John Arbon Knit by Numbers 4-ply comes with 400 metres, and this calls for 500 of each colour. I've decided that what I'm going to do is I've kind of done 2 things. I'm going to skip section 3 and move straight on to section 4, because section 3 is another section of increases, whereas section 4 is just straight knitting. So that will help me use a bit less yarn. And I've also weighed how much I've used. So I've used about 10 to 12 grams of each colour in this section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also knit until I think I've got about 20 grams left, just to be really safe with the amount of yarn I've got, till I've got about 20 grams left, and then I'll start decreasing on the other side. Part of the reason that I'm not increasing anymore is because of the yarn, but also because I think this is a good thickness. I think while it's a... I'm getting twisted with this needle. While it is a shawl, I know this is for my boyfriend. I know that he'll wear this more as a scarf. So I think this feels scarf thickness, and then I'll maybe get a bit more length out of it, which I think will be more useful for him. I'm knitting this on 3.5mm Leica needles. They're not interchangeables. I think these are the ones I did my West knits, my MCal on. I think they're about 40 inch, maybe. Not very good with measurements. And the 2 colourways that I'm using are this green, which you can see a bit better on its own when it's not next to the black. And that is colourway, I want to say 45. Am I right? 43, so close. There we go, you can kind of see that there. And then colourway 01, which is the black, so... I mean, it's black, so that's what it looks like. And I'm really enjoying this. I think now I've looked at section 4. Section 4 is only a 4-row repeat. I think now it will become kind of quite mindless and quite quick knitting, because I do still, for the increases, obviously where you're increasing and the rows are different each time, I have been having to check it, so I'm excited for that, but I'm really, really enjoying this. I really love the stitch pattern. That section, so that stitch marker there was where it before, so I've got section 2 gave me quite a lot of length, which I'm happy with. And I'm having a good time. I like knitting things. I think I've realised that I really like knitting things for other people. I like knitting things for myself, or making things for myself, but I think when I know someone else is going to have it, it motivates me a little bit more. So knowing that, although by the time I finish this it might not, no, actually it probably will still be cold enough for it to be worn at least once or twice, but it's not, it'll get a lot of use kind of in future years. And this is in my Fibre Fox bag that I got for Christmas, which is covered in these moths, which I got specifically for projects for my boyfriend, because he loves moths, because he's a bit odd. In like a nice way, but he is quite an odd boy. Although some of you might like moths. I think a lot of people are odd, and I quite like odd people. I mean, I like him. We've been in a relationship for many years. Should we talk about some new cast-ons? Some things you've not seen before? One of them, you have seen the yarn before. So if you watched the last couple of episodes, you will have seen that I was knitting the Summer Stripe Shawl by... I literally always forget their name. It takes me ages to kind of remember if I need to like knit on something for a while to like remember what they're. Made UKP. Yes. However, if you'd watched the last episode, you know that I was kind of umming and ahhing about it, about whether I wanted to continue with it. I wasn't happy with the edging, and it wasn't the pattern, it was kind of the way I'd knit it. And I think it's my tension and also the way I enjoy things. So I was considering whether I wanted to continue with it, whether I wanted to start it again and maybe try and neaten it up a little bit, maybe modify it a bit. In the end, I decided, because I wasn't just enjoying making it, I didn't want to put more time into it. And I thought if I leave it any longer, it's just going to be sat. And I really wanted to use this yarn. So in the end, I ripped it out and I've started a new project. I wanted to start something straight away, just because otherwise I feel like this yarn would have bad vibes and just be sat somewhere for ages. So I did that. So let me show you the yarn first. Oh, it's still attached, that's why. So this is yarn from Pigment and Ply. This was part of their 2023 Advent pre-order that they did afterwards to get full skeins of it. I got, both of these are in their DK Merino Cashmere Nylon base, which is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. And you're getting 212 meters per 100 grams. This colourway is the colourway La Viuda Romana. This really wonderfully variegated kind of very autumnal vibes colour. And then this colourway is Wilding Muse. Kind of this really wonderful. It's not quite as yellow toned as that. It's the light reflecting off it. It's a little bit more, I hold it there maybe. Maybe that's showing up as the right colour. But those are the two colours. And I have decided to knit the Field Shawl by Max the Knitter of Les Garçons, which was one of the two patterns that I had in mind for this yarn when I spoke about it, God knows how long ago, when I was thinking about kind of umming and ahhing about what I was going to choose. So where's the right side? There we go. And this is where we're up to. I have to say, I'm really, really loving this pattern. It's very, very simple, very, very mindless. As kind of all three of my projects are at the moment, which I'm really happy about. I think work's quite stressful at the moment, so what I really need is something that I just don't have to think about too much. So I'm on section 1 still. So if you can see, what we're doing is we're using the variegated colour mostly at the moment, but then there is a stripe at the end of each section of the green, and then the other side of it alternates. So it becomes mostly the green, which is what I wanted to do with this yarn, because I knew I wanted to play with it together. And this is, do I have my snips anyway? Because I don't know why I've left this yarn attached. I don't think I do. And that's where I'm up to. And in terms of the amount of knitting and length, I'm pretty much caught up with where I was before. This didn't take very long at all. And it has an I-cord edge on each side, and then it's just garter, and you're just increasing every 4 rows, I think it is. There's not really any shaping. There's just kind of, you increase on one side and then you start decreasing to get to the other point, which is super simple and super wonderful. And the fabric that this is creating, I think that's one of the other things I've noticed while knitting on this, is whatever was going on with my gauge on the other project, I wasn't getting as nice a fabric out of the yarn as I am on this, which I'm happy with, because I want this to be something that's kind of, I went a bit bougie on the yarn getting the merino cashmere nylon, so I want something that's like nice and a bit luxurious in feel. And I started on the variegated side because that's the side I'd used the least in the other one, so I thought at least that will feel different. Because of the summer stripe shawl, I lost about 12 grams of this colourway, just because I didn't leave the colour attached. The pattern does tell you to leave the colour attached in the summer stripes. I wasn't, because I didn't want to deal with it, so I did lose some of this. So what I'm going to do is at some point, I've got 2 skeins of each. So at some point on the second skein, I'll work out how much I've used of the green and make sure I've got enough of that left, and then start the decrease side with the green is the plan. But I'm really, really enjoying this. This is a little, I'm going to use this as a progress keeper. At the moment, it's just showing me which is the right side. A little kind of spool embroidered butterfly. by Pigment and Ply that I think I bought with this yarn actually, so that's appropriate. And I'm knitting this on 4mm Leica interchangeables. And I have my little Highland Cowl needle stoppers, which I've since learned are just silicone beads. I was watching a video by the Corner of Craft and she ordered some, and that makes sense because I couldn't really work out why there was a hole in both sides, but it's fun. It's like a fun use for an otherwise, I suppose, quite niche crafting tool. This is in my Corner of Craft. No, it's not. This is in my Butternut Handmade bag. Let me put this back in just so I'll have to untangle it later. I'm kind of at the moment managing to be quite good at kind of working on each of my projects, which I'm enjoying and is making me feel quite accomplished because it feels like I'm getting a lot done. So I hope that continues. And then of all the ones that I'm working on at the moment, this one feels the most likely to be finished, I think. Next time I see you, they'll all be finished eventually, but I didn't put those labels in. But I'm not in a rush either. I'm just enjoying my knitting, enjoying working a bit peacefully of an evening, just having a good time. I was thinking about it the other day actually. For some reason, since the weekend, I think I just got into a really good groove. I think the summer stripe shawl, as much as I enjoy the pattern, I kind of wish I could have the finished object. Now that I don't have to think about that, I'm like in a good groove with my crafting and what I'm thinking about, which I'm happy about. It's always a nice place to be. I feel like I keep sliding down off of this sofa, so if I'm going up and down, that's why. I'm very thirsty today. Last whip, and then we'll talk about some yarn, and I will confess my sins to you. That's the one we just spoke about. I've realised about myself, since I finished the Cushy Comfort Hat, that I just quite like having a ribbed hat on the needles, or a hat on the needles. And I quite like some 2x2 ribbing. I know a lot of people don't like ribbing, but I quite enjoy it. So what I did was I cast on another hat, which was always in the plans. And here we are. This is knitting another hipster hat. So the hipster hat by Petite Knit, which I've knit one of before in some, I think some Crafty Bird yarn, maybe some Pigment and Ply yarn. But this one I'm knitting up in my sub-club, the Nautical Nexus by Woolen Wytch. So this is the Woolen Wytch's monthly subscription. The theme of the year is Nautical Nexus, and the first colourway was based on the blue whale. The colourway is called the Lonely Abyss, and I'm ordering these in the DK 100% Blueface Leicester base, which I think is non-superwash. It feels non-superwash to me. And so I only cast this on probably on Sunday night. So you're seeing as it's Wednesday, I've made some quite good inroads. I'm probably at, what's that? Just over 2 inches, I'd say. I'm really enjoying how this is knitting up. The yarn's working up really, really nicely. I was going to try a different cast on, which I've said I think the last 2 hats I've knit. I was going to try the German Twisted, which someone recommended in the comments for me a few videos ago. I watched the tutorial. It didn't look super complicated. I think I could do it because it's similar to the way that I do the long tail currently. But it was maybe 6 o'clock on a Sunday and all I wanted to do was cast on and knit some ribbing. I didn't want to have to think too much about the cast on. So I just cast on using long tail, which I've used before, I know works for this pattern. And I'm knitting these on 3.5mm Chow Goose 16-inch circulars, which are my favourite. I say, yeah, they are my favourite for knitting hat. I've used Leica before. I think that I just like a metal needle with, I think it's the cables for knitting in the round. They don't get, sometimes I feel like your knits can almost twist over and then it can be harder to move them around, but that doesn't happen with these. So I'm just going to knit this to the same dimensions as my last hipster hat. and then we're done. And I know I won't use all of this. I think what I'm then going to do is, because I think I'd like to make a hat with this club each month. I think that would be nice to end the year with 12 hats. And I think the hipster hat, but also other ribbing based hats, are quite good for gift knits, because this just has a child size and an adult size. The only thing you really change then is the length. Let me just wind this up because I'm dropping over the floor. So I think they'd be good gift knits, and I'd like to get to the end of the year and maybe have a load of hats that I could give away to people. Because I wanted to do that last year, but I thought of it maybe in October, and I was like, I don't just want to spend the next 2 months knitting hats. So I might do that, but we'll see. It's only, if I can get this done by the time that the next club arrives, which will be kind of second half of the month, then maybe we might be onto a winner. But we'll see if that continues through the year, because obviously there'll be other projects that get in the way. And I say gifting them, I know I'm going to really like a lot of the colourways. I really like the way the Woolen Wytch dies, so I might just end up wanting to keep them all. Maybe I'll have 12 hats. What a dream that would be. And this is, actually, let me put, no. This, I've added it to the bag just so I don't lose it. The yarn came with this little stitch marker of a little wooden whale, which I'm going to use as my progress keeper, so I will put that on later when I pick it up again. And this is in another Butternut handmade bag. A surprise to absolutely no one, because most of my bags are. Shall we talk about some yarn? I think that's everything. Like I said, I've not done any notes, so I don't know whether I've completely missed something. But I know I only finished 2 things, so I don't know what else I could have forgotten. Let's talk about some yarn. I've had 2 yarn deliveries. One of them is my fault, one of them is not my fault. Let's do with the one that is my fault. So Pigment and Ply did their kind of in-stock update, which they normally do at the start of the year. I was going to not order anything, I was going to be good, I was thinking I want to use my stash, and I do, that's still the case. But then I thought, one thing I do want to make, so this Simon shawl, like I said, is for my boyfriend. I also want one for me, and I did have a look through my stash. I don't think I have 2 colours that contrast enough that I'd want to use for me in 4-ply. So I thought it would be nice to maybe buy that. So I did. And then I thought, do you know what would be fun? I'm making my granny square blanket. Maybe it would be fun to buy a mystery mini thing. So maybe get some minis for that. And then I thought, do you know what would also be fun? Would be to get a mystery pack of 3 full 100 gram skeins. So what's happened is I've ended up with 600 grams of yarn, which isn't great for a no-buy, but here we are. Let me show you the yarn that I bought. So the yarn that I bought, with the intention of being the Simon shawl, are these 2 colours. I wanted Ruth from Ruth Loves to Knit has done a couple using a variegated as one of the colours, and that's something I want to do. So what I did was I bought, let me show you them a bit closer up first, and then I'll tell you the names. This one at the top, oh no, there we go. It's, yeah, that's about accurate the way the colours are showing up. This top colour is called You Were Never Not Mine, and this is called Sewing in an Interior. I have no idea what the references are for those. I have a feeling there might be Taylor Swift references, because I know she's done a few Taylor Swift collections. I just think tonally, these are going to be so nice together. They're both 100% superwash merino, so 400 meters per 100 grams. I really love their 100% superwash merino base, and I just can't get enough of. Pigment and Ply is super variegated, like this bottom one is. I just can't get enough of it. I want all of them in every yarn weight, every colourway, everything. And this solids are so good as well, because this is a Pigment and Ply, and it's just so deep and rich in colour. And then I got the mystery minis, and I forgot to leave a note that I wanted these variegated. So I got 3 that are more solid and 2 variegated. So those 2 will go into my blanket. But these are the 5 that I got. So those 2 at the bottom, I will wind them up probably today actually, and I'll turn them into granny squares for my blanket. And then I also have those 3, which are 3 fun solids, which I'll get use out of in something. I have quite a lot of solid minis, and in my head I keep thinking, oh, they'd be nice like contrasts for socks or things like that, or good for colour work. The problem is I've never made socks, nor have I ever done colour work, so I think they'll be more used for colour work than contrast in socks, because I think I'll probably do more colour work projects this year than I will socks. But who knows, when I first knit a pair of socks, I might get really into it and then be on board. And then I got 3 skeins from a kind of mystery trio, and I picked a 4-ply trio again. I don't know again, but 4-ply. The first one that came up is called Spring of Pigget, and this is in, so with 4-ply you'll get like 3 4-plies, but they could be in any base that they do. Sometimes they're base that just sells as like traditional bases. Sometimes they might be a test skein from a base that she doesn't actually sell. The first one I got is Spring of Pigget. I love this colourway. It's actually very, very similar to Nordmanania. It's Spring's a little bit more blue, but in person they're a bit more similar than it shows up there as well. But when I saw this, I thought maybe these two would be really nice for a Simon shawl. So when I love the idea of a variegated, maybe these two would be really fun. So I'm on the fence now. Actually, it'd be good to get your thoughts. Do you think these two and go variegated, or these two and go solid? Be good to know your thoughts, because that kind of threw me a little bit. I then got, and this is on their sock base, so 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. This is called Midnight's Development 4, which means I'm assuming that's not the colourway name and that it was actually just the 4th stage of development for a colourway called Midnight. But I don't know, I'm not on their development cycle. And this is a really fun kind of earth tones, neutral browns, a bit of grey at the bottom, some speckles in there. I really like this. I have no idea what I'll use this for, which is kind of what happens when you buy 3 mystery skeins, because you can't plan for that. But I think this will be really nice. It's actually quite a nice, less variegated, but still with some interest in it, that I think will go well with a lot of things. Maybe one day it'll be socks. And then this last one is, I was literally the day before this yarn arrived, I was talking to my boyfriend, and we were talking, he was like asking about fibres that they make up with, because I mentioned something being like non-superwash, and we were talking about that. And he said, he was kind of saying, what do they make? And I was saying, they make yarn out of like alpaca, you obviously get silk, you get loads of different animals. And he said, do they do it out of llama? And I said, no. I said, they do alpaca, I think llamas, they don't do it. I'd never seen people talking about yarn from llama. And then this turned up, and this is on 100% baby llama. So this is another 4-ply again, so it's 400 metre per 100 grams. It's a non-superwash. And this, I can't even tell you how soft this yarn is. It's also got quite a nice, I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, it's got quite a nice kind of natural halo to it. But it isn't super, super thin like I mean, it's not like a mohair, it's not a lace weight. And I'm about to say something that might sound really weird and make no sense to someone. This colourway, so it's called Rain Soaking Blind Hoping. There's something about this colourway that makes me want to make something nice and dainty and then give it to a French woman. I don't know if that makes any sense. There's just something about this colourway that makes me think someone should be wearing this on the streets of Paris. It's just so pretty and it's so soft. I think this will be, I will find a single skein pattern that's kind of maybe some cables, although I think it's maybe, I don't feel like it has the structure that would hold cables well, because it's quite a kind of floppy, like, I don't know if that makes sense. It's like a softer kind of less structured yarn, but something that's maybe got a bit of texture to it, just really simple. And then maybe I'll find, maybe I need to befriend someone French and give this to them. Or maybe I need to go to France and I'll wear this and I'll pretend I'm a Parisian woman for a day. So that's everything from Pigment and Ply. So 600 grams of yarn in for what was meant to be not buying any yarn, but I'm really happy with all of it. I think I'll use all of it. Some of it I don't want to like hop over some of the other skeins I've got, but I just like, and this makes me want to buy loads of llama yarn. I might have to look into seeing if there's any other like readily available, because I think you could do a lot of fun things with this base. So that's all the yarn that was my fault. So I have no excuses for that. I bought it, I made the decisions. Now some yarn that isn't my fault. Like I said, I have a very cute nephew. He turns 3 in March. And at the moment, he is really into Moana. In that way that like young children like really fixate on something. My sister is so bored of the songs of Moana. I think they watch the Moana film like at least once a day. My mum sent me, and I will put a picture up of what my mum sent me, of these 2 crochet amigurumi dolls of, I think one's called Lava and one's called Island. I have seen Moana, but I don't know it that well. And they're really cute, and my nephew, Leo, will really enjoy them. So, to be fair, my mum asked me to do this, but because she asked me on like behalf of my nephew, I didn't want to be like the family pariah that said no. So, I had to place a massive order of yarn. So there are 10 skeins in here, and it's chenille yarn. I don't love amigurumi. I did it a bit in 2023 when I was kind of, before I'd learnt to knit. And I enjoyed the things I made. I liked the end point of them. I just don't love the process as much. I also don't love knitting. I don't love using chenille yarn. I've tried it a bit before. It's so hard to see the stitches. But a cute nephew wants it, so here we are. I ordered, the pattern uses Premier Parfait, which is not easy to get in the UK. So instead I've gone for Yarnsmiths Chenille Chunky, which is the same, I think about the same meterage. I think this is actually a little bit thinner, but that's fine because it will just be a smaller project in the end. I think it recommended a similar hook size, so I'm happy with that. I bought it in the 10 colours for both dolls. I maybe could have made some variations because like these pinks are literally just used in like the flowers and the headband. So I might have to think of something else to do with it. What I want is for none of this yarn to still be in my possession after my nephew's birthday, which is the 29th of March. So I'm probably going to begin these at the weekend because I don't want it to become like a mad dash at the end. So I'll do them slowly up till then. But then I might also, whatever I've got left, I might just turn into like a quick blanket or a scarf or something, just so it's in a project, and then I will also gift that to my nephew just so it's gone. So in March, we might get into like big yarn out sections. I also, because I was doing a wool warehouse order, which I'm not, because I'm trying to use less yarn, I knew I wouldn't be making many of those orders. I also wanted to buy a skein of the Yarnsmiths Pebble Haze DK, which is their cotton acrylic. So it's a cotton chain yarn that's then like filled with acrylic. It's really, really soft. It's a really, really wonderful yarn. I've tried out the Aran weight before, and the reason why I wanted to buy a skein of this is because I want to do some maths. That sounds fun, doesn't it? It's because I want to do some maths and work out for my sister's second child, which is due in April. I'm going to start a temperature blanket for him for the first year of his life, to give him on his first birthday. I did the same thing with nephew number 1, and I'm going to do the same thing with nephew number 2. I'm going to do it out of yarn. I did that out of a mixture of, it was one of the earlier projects I made and I didn't really know what I was doing. The weight of the yarns are all different. I use like, they're all Aran weight, but they're not like, I learned from that, not all Aran weights are made equal. So this is going to be a bit more uniform. I feel a little bit bad that nephew 2 is getting just like a better blanket because I am much better at crochet than I was March 2023, but I can't really do anything about that. So I want to do some maths to work out how much how many grams I use for like a row, and also try and work out what kind of pattern I want to use. I have this idea. I think I'll probably end up doing a moss stitch / granny stitch blanket. I do have this idea though of, and I'll talk about this more once I get to it, because I'm not going to start it till April. I'll probably place the yarn order in March. I have this idea of a blanket that's like a pyramid or some form of triangle where day one is a small point and then it grows uniformly from there, so that the 365th day, so the last day of him being one, is like the biggest stripe, and you can see him like grow and get over a year. I think that's a really nice idea. I just can't quite find the pattern for it, and I need to kind of sit down and work out the construction of that. If you've got any recommendations, actually, like if you know of a pattern, because it doesn't feel like a kind of groundbreaking idea, I just can't find patterns for it. So if you know of any patterns that kind of have that same vibe, I'm almost thinking it might be like a corner to corner, but you only do one corner and then you do two corners, and you kind of almost keep growing, but then you stop. You don't kind of do backwards rows. Potentially, I'm kind of thinking maybe like a moss stitch corner to corner, so like the rows grow, but I think that'll be a little bit less obvious. And I want something where that first point can be its own colour. I don't want this to have to be like a glob of day one, because day one has to be bigger. So I might have to invent a blanket, which is fine. I feel pretty confident with crochet to be able to kind of do something new and a bit kind of self-drafted. But ideally, I just like a pattern, to be honest. But what I want is this, so I can do gauge swatches, so I can kind of maybe test out my idea, work out how much yarn I think I'm going to need, and I'll work out the yarn based on, I still have probably written down somewhere my nephew's blankets maths, so I'll work out like roughly how many of each day, like each colourway I used, and then I'll make sure I have about enough of that. But that's why I bought this. So, shall we hear the numbers for, so this is my, I've called it January, but really it's just kind of my before now, yarn in, yarn out. So, where is it in my notebook? I'm hoping, so I'm going to keep track of this through the year, and I'll do kind of it might become like an every other video kind of thing, I suppose, because that will be kind of a month. And then at the end of the year, we'll do like a look back and we'll see whether I was any good at this. And if not, maybe we'll need to make some stricter plans for 2026. So, at the start of the month, I made 2 orders. One was John Arbon, which included 350 grams of yarn in. The other was my Woolen Wytch hat. It wasn't a hat at the time, my Woolen Wytch, which was 100 grams in. I then finished my traveller cowl, which was 150 out. We were doing so well. I then finished my Cushy Comfort Hat, which was 75 grams out. It was a great time. Everyone lost their mind. I then did a Pigment and Ply order, which was 600 grams in. I then did a Wool Warehouse order, which was 1,050 grams in. So, doing all the maths, we are currently ending January with 1,875 grams in to stash, which is rubbish. I was kind of thinking maybe we'll end up with like 200 grams in. Almost 20 full skeins of yarn in is mental. And I also still think, like, the way I bought yarn, I was still quite restricted. I was quite reserved. I didn't buy, there were a couple of yarn like orders I could have placed that I didn't. I did place one other order actually that hasn't arrived yet, because it's a pre-order, so that will arrive in February, but they were mini skeins, so that won't be very many grams. But yeah, I need to not buy any yarn in February. I know of probably about 300 grams that will definitely come in February, because I have 2 clubs and then I have those mini skeins that I ordered. So let's hope that I can use more than 300 grams in February, which doesn't feel super difficult because I think some of my projects will go quite fast. But yeah, almost 19 skeins of yarn in wasn't where I wanted to be. Although I do still protest that this was not my fault. my mum's fault and my cute nephew's fault. But we'll see how February goes. And I think that's everything really. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully this doesn't felt too all over the place, because I didn't, like I said, I didn't take any notes. I don't have any show notes or plans. But I think I've covered everything. Oh, I also signed up for, let me get that actually. This wasn't yarn. So I signed up to become a John Arbon Mill member. So I've got my badge that I've attached to my Notions pouch. Just as a kind of little payday treat really, because then I didn't buy yarn, but it was kind of yarn focused. And one thing that John Arbon does, so that means it's a lifetime membership and I get 10% off John Arbon orders. And I really love their yarn, so that it will pay for itself eventually. But also you get access to kind of member only drops of certain things. And I've seen some of them before that I've been kind of jealous of. So I'm excited to kind of have access to them so that I can buy more yarn, even though I'm not buying yarn. We'll see. If it gets out, if I end up with like 20 more skeins in February, maybe I'll need to do like a proper yarn ban and like get someone to take my money away or something, but we'll see. Hopefully it won't get to that. If you're still watching, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, giving it a like would be great. And I will see you in a couple of weeks and we will catch up and see what's happened. So I will see you then. Bye.